Hey everybody, it's Drayton from ScaleTrains, and I'm standing here with my good friend Bill Orman. And I'm kind of excited because this is the first time I've seen the entire run of our Rivet Counter ES44 GEVOs. And today we're going to do a little bit of a lighting and sound demonstration on Bill's modern layout. So Bill, before we get started down to the nitty-gritty, tell me a little bit about your layout. What exactly do you model?
Well, I modeled the modern day layout and did that in cooperation with my grandchildren, and they wanted to see that because that's what they see every day.
Well, it doesn't get more common than an ES44 GEVO. You know, we hear a lot of feedback from our customers. Another GEVO, and that's exactly what you see on the rails today. So have you any experience with our Rivet Counter models?
Yes, I do. They're great.
You like them?
I do like them.
We like to hear that. So without further ado, let's get down to the overview. What do you say, Bill?
Sounds good to me.
All right, let's go have some fun. The latest run of Rivet Counter HO Scale ES44 GEVOs is in stock now and features new road names, paint schemes, and highly anticipated Norfolk Southern Heritage units with PTC array for the first time in HO scale. GE's Evolution series is the best-selling diesel locomotive series of all time, which is why we spoke to Mike Hopkin to learn more about the real-life prototypes and the ES44 project as a whole.
When we initially started the project, it was only going to be later versions. Obviously, there's competitors that have early versions of ES44s out there, and so we really wanted to focus on the later versions. Wanted to be able to capture things like the CSX Pride and Service units, things like that. So we started down that path, and it rapidly became something that became way more complex than what we ever envisioned. You know, once we got the first run done and those Pride and Service units, then we moved into BNSF decided they wanted to do the 25th anniversary units. So we decided that we wanted to go that route with them and work closely with them. The problem is that they decided to pick all units that were early production units, ones that we had not tooled and never anticipated in tooling initially. So then became the big scramble of now we got to come up with new tooling. Charles Mylar was one of the ones who helped in the initial phases of the project. My personal estimation is that this is actually a more complicated locomotive than such like an SD40-2. And that's only based on changes that were made by the manufacturer. We're not talking about railroad-specific details, but we're talking about just what GE built into these things. We've got a spreadsheet that's 40 columns wide of variations in these locomotives.
To start out, we'll be comparing the features of the City Rail and Ferromex ES44s, the two units with the most road name specific differences in this run.
City Rail was released units, and so they were seen all over the place. Obviously, they've been now picked up by Canadian National, but prior to that, a lot of them were stored on the BNSF, awaiting disposition to figure out what was going to happen to them. And so now now you'll see them on Canadian National, and you see them all over. I've shot actually some out in Southern California in the BNSF. Patched now for CN, and that'll be something we'll be doing in a later run. City Rail is just a road name that we were able to do. We had the right combination of parts to be able to accurately portray them. And again, that's what it kind of comes down to, is it's this interchangeability in the tooling that by swapping inserts around for the bodies, for the walkways and the cabs, we're able to achieve all of these variations. So we've tried to build that into the tooling so that we get these variations and be able to achieve as many versions as possible. We determined through our charts and all of our tooling that we were able to do accurate versions of Ferromex. And we felt like this was a real opportunity to be able to offer something to our friends down south, the Mexican modelers, and the guys here in the U.S., because you see them up here quite a bit. The other thing is that Ferromex had just introduced their new Zebra paint scheme, which is a very stunning paint scheme, and they're on the ES44s. And so we figured between the new paint scheme and the opportunity to be able to actually offer something for a Mexican railroad, it was just a great opportunity for us.
Now let's compare the two. To start off, the nose door on each unit is opposite of each other. The City Rail version is equipped with the high-ad truck, while the Ferromex ES44 has the steerable type. Both versions feature rotating bearing caps, a signature rivet counter feature found on all HO scale ES44s. Next, we compare the lighting features. The City Rail GEVO is equipped with ground lights on both sides of the cab, while the Ferromex version does not have any ground lights. Ground lights are used by engineers to determine if the locomotive is moving at night. They also allow the engineer to see clearance points in yards more easily when switching in the dark. Both units are equipped with deck-mounted ditch lights on the short hood end, and the City Rail unit also has ditch lights on the rear of the locomotive. The Ferromex version features a center vertical-mounted headlight, while the City Rail is equipped with a horizontal headlight. Each road name features a walkway light on the engineer's side so that the crewman can avoid tripping at night. Road number specific details are a hallmark of the Rivet Counter brand. Thanks to our friends and fellow modelers in Mexico, we received excellent prototype photography for the Ferromex ES44s, allowing us to accurately portray these unique features.
So some of the things that are unique about the Ferromex locomotives is we've got obviously the window grates or anti-vandalism screens, whatever you want to call them. Ferromex and Ferrosur use those down in Mexico because people like to throw rocks for whatever reason. And so you'll see those applied to those locomotives down there. Typically when those locomotives come north, they remove them. They're not permanent on the locomotives. They're actually removable. And so you will see Ferromex units up here without them. You'll actually see North American railroads equipment down there that they'll actually put those on. Another neat feature on some of the units for Ferromex is that they've got actually cameras mounted to the sides of the cab that actually point rearward down towards the fuel tanks. According to some of our sources down in Mexico, I guess they have a problem with fuel being stolen from the locomotives, and so now they've actually got cameras mounted on the cab sides to be able to monitor that so that they're not losing fuel out of the locomotives. Through this process, we've developed some friendships and some contacts down in Mexico. Initially, when we started looking into the ES44s, as I was out stumbling around trying to find photos, I had stumbled across a young man's Flickr page who had just a myriad of photographs. His name's Juan Malazzo, and through contacting him initially, he has been nothing but just a fantastic source for information. He helped out with the NDM SD40-2s, supplying information. He helped out with the ES44s and our upcoming Ferrosur AC4400s as well. Supplied tons of photographs on those. Subsequent to that, myself and my wife went to our first show in Monterrey, Mexico. First time a U.S. manufacturer had ever been down there. And we made a whole other group of great contacts. Rodrigo, Paco, Kevin, Pablo, all guys that belong to the club down there. These guys were there and just treated us like royalty when we were there and have been just a great source. Another young man that we met down there, Aldo, who lives down in Guadalajara. These guys were able to help us sort out the problem we had with the zebras, actually get us color chips, actually get us real paint. Again, they've been a fantastic source, and we're really happy to have them on board, and they are very supportive of us. Those guys down there are big ScaleTrains fans, and can't thank them enough for all that they're doing to help us. With these guys on board now and actually building these relationships, which is vitally important, we've opened up doors down there to be able to have access, to be able to get the information that we need to be able to do more accurate models. And these guys have just been instrumental. Can't thank them enough for all that they've done. And so, you know what? Let's hear from them directly about what they think about our Ferromex ES44s.
How is everyone? I'm Juan Luca Malazzo, a rail fan of Mexico City railroads, and well, here we have the 4632 from Ferromex in HO scale. It's part of the newest batch of ES44s from ScaleTrains, and also the first locomotive from the Rivet Counter brand, and wow! The level of detail is impressive. The attention to detail of each road number. In fact, what I liked most about the locomotive is that the Watronics cameras were included on the sides of the cab. These cameras were installed a couple of years ago in most of the Ferromex and Ferrosur locomotives. The truth is that these are very impressive. ScaleTrains is a company that surpasses itself every day with the attention to detail in each locomotive that they produce. They offer excellent customer service and are a highly recommended company for buying your model trains. And well, I think I will continue to be a customer for many years. Regards to all. Hello, I'm Rodrigo Rodriguez, and I want to tell you why I love ScaleTrains. I love them because their models have a great level of detail, excellent paint, very good lighting and sound characteristics, with specific detail for locomotives of each road name. They have a very good weight for pulling many cars. Right now, I don't have a model on hand, but I really like that they add the detail of grills and windows at the factory, and that it represents 4 different periods of the original Ferromex schemes. It's a very good model to add to your roster of locomotives, and I 100% recommend. My name is Aldo Giovanelli. I'm a Mexican model railroader, and in this video I wanted to tell you how excited I am that we finally have scale replicas of the Ferromex ES44s, and more than anything, to have the zebra scheme on one of the more recent repaints from the company. I'm also excited because for the first time in HO scale, we have the anti-vandalism protection grates, something that I never have seen before, and something that gives our locomotives a unique detail. As a project collaborator, I'm very excited since I was able to provide photos and paint samples for the development of these locomotives. And as always, ScaleTrains surprises us with an incredible level of detail. More than anything, I want to thank this incredible brand for their work, their research, and everything else that was required to reach this point. Thank you very much, ScaleTrains, for always keeping new models in sight and, as always, offering them with excellent quality. Now that we've heard from modelers in Mexico about their excitement for the Ferromex ES44s, let's hear what master modeler Pele Soberg has to say about the railroad that owns a controlling interest in Ferromex, Union Pacific.
Hello, my name is Pele Soberg, and I'm a model railroader from Copenhagen, Denmark, who back in the early 90s, by a coincidence, began modeling North American railroads. In my opinion, it is the nicest looking model of a GEVO I have seen to date. It wasn't a big surprise, as I only have had good experiences with the appearance and level of detail on my ScaleTrains Rivet counter locomotives. Actually, I sold all my ES44 GEVOs after I placed the pre-order for a couple of ScaleTrains version because I was pretty sure that their version would surpass the ones I had. I mainly use my trains for photo shoots. In pictures, even the smallest inaccuracy is revealed, and I have to say that I have not been able to put my finger on anything that looks wrong on my ScaleTrains locomotives. On my best shots, it really can be hard to tell if it is a model or real. Their quality control is also really good. At least, I have not yet experienced any loose or missing parts. Keep up the good work, ScaleTrains.
As mentioned earlier, we're offering 4 Norfolk Southern Heritage ES44 GEVOs in this run with PTC array for the first time. Heritage schemes include Southern Railway, which merged with Norfolk and Western in 1982 to form Norfolk Southern. We're also offering 8114 in the original Norfolk Southern scheme. The original NS was a Southern Railway subsidiary in Virginia and North Carolina. 8105 is the Interstate Heritage Unit and wears an attractive orange, silver, gray, and cream scheme. Lastly, we're also offering the Pennsylvania Railroad Heritage ES44 in the attractive Tuscan red scheme that was used on the Pensy's most famous passenger trains.
So the big difference between our version and what other manufacturers have done is the PTC cabinets on the roof. When those units were initially delivered and painted, PTC wasn't something that was being used. Subsequent to that, they've all had PTC added, and since our models were made at a later production time, we're able to add those features to it and be able to do a modern, contemporary, right now, today version of those locomotives.
Josh Clark, known for his YouTube channel NS Modeler 24, recently weathered his Interstate and Southern Railway heritage units and shared his thoughts about the new models.
Hey guys, my name is Josh Clark. I'm here at our Norfolk Southern Asheville District layout, which models the Norfolk Southern rail lines in the mountains of western North Carolina. So these are the new ScaleTrains ES44 AC heritage engines, and they are spectacular models. I remember seeing the real ones when they came out in 2012 back at the event in Spencer. And I remember just thinking I had to have a model of them. So I took some old Tower 55 locomotives, custom painted them. They weren't anywhere close to accurate when it comes to details, but they were good stand-ins. And I've really been waiting for years for someone to come out with kind of the definitive locomotive, and ScaleTrains really knocked it out of the park on these. So huge shout out, thanks to them for doing these. Real quick tidbit about the Southern locomotive, I found out that this is actually the most up-to-date and modern version of the prototype that's on the HO scale market. They added the PTC antennas with the grip tape on top, which looks spectacular. And then they also added the logo on the back of the locomotive. That's a new addition to the prototype that they added about a year or so ago when they revamped the paint scheme. They kind of freshened it up a little bit, but they actually took some feedback from the railroading community saying, hey, you know, all the Southern locomotives actually had a logo on the long hood, which the original prototype didn't have. So they actually added that on, and ScaleTrains has modeled that here on the locomotive. So really cool addition to the model that I thought was just awesome to kind of match up to the prototype. So it is 100% accurate when it comes to a modern heritage unit that Norfolk Southern has.
Attention to detail is important. That's why all Rivet Counter HO scale ES44 GEVOs feature rotating bearing caps. Check out Southern 8099's rotating bearing caps on GE's signature high-ad trucks. Another road name specific detail on Norfolk Southern units are flashing rear ditch lights. Canadian Pacific versions feature solid ditch lights on the long hood end. We spoke with Sterling Callahan, known as Ravenhawk6910 on YouTube, to learn more about why he models the Canadian Pacific and his thoughts on the Rivet Counter ES44.
Canadian Pacific is just an interesting railroad to me because there's a lot of history behind it. It's one of the oldest Class 1 railroads still in existence today, you know, second only to Union Pacific. I just think it's a very interesting railroad to model in general, and yeah, my favorite colors are black and red, so, you know, CP just makes sense to me. Well, really, I'm just happy that it was made, first of all, because I, like many other people, love having models of things in the real world that I've seen, and the Strathcona unit is one of those things. I saw it about 5 years ago in person, and looking up the history behind that coat of arms, it's really quite fascinating, really, how a regiment, a tank regiment now, they started off as a horseback regiment by a private individual, is number one, still around today, number two, at one time the only armored regiment in the Canadian Army, and the fact that Lord Strathcona himself played an intricate role in the construction of the CPR itself, I think it's a nice nod to CP's history to have the coat of arms on this locomotive in the first place. The detail on the model is your typical ScaleTrains Rivet counter, and by that I mean it's extraordinary. I love the detail on this thing. I love the rotating bearing caps. I love the deck lighting. I love all the lighting on the locomotive. The grills, I really like the grills on the model, especially the kind of see-through ones here on the top with the fans for the radiator section. That's really cool. And overall, it's just a fantastic model, and most definitely better than a brass model in some cases. If you're modeling CP in the modern era, you definitely need, if not this one of the other CP ES44s that ScaleTrains has offered in this most recent run, because the CP GEVO is just as much an icon these days as the AC4400, which ScaleTrains will be making later on, and I definitely will have to get some of those as well to go with this thing, because you can't just have one after all.
Well, Bill, now that we've had an opportunity to go through all the lighting and the sound functions, what's your first impressions of the Rivet Counter HO ES44?
Well, the engines are really smooth running. The lighting and sound effects are great. And they were all out of the box, ran at the same speed.
That's what we like to hear. Well, you know, Bill, model railroading, it's all about having fun. What do you say we do some switching? How about you pick out an ES44 and let's do some switching on some industries around your layout. Is there one that you particularly fancy?
I'd like to try the interstate. I don't have one on my railroad, so this would be great.
Great choice, and hey, you can't go wrong with orange. Orange is my favorite color, so let's do it. Which industry do you want to switch first?
Let's do the container yard.
Hey, let's check it out. Let's go check out Bill's container yard. Come on. With 8105 now fired up, Bill proceeds forward to his intermodal yard. Bill began working on his model railroad about a decade ago, and it's nearing completion. While Bill prefers the classic railroads he grew up with, he enjoys sharing his favorite hobby with his grandkids, who enjoy modern motive power like the ES44. Bill says the heritage units are a nice throwback to the good old days, and enjoys incorporating the classic schemes of the past on his modern layout. It truly is the best of both worlds. With the locomotive now lined into the intermodal yard, Bill eases the 8105 toward a cut of double stacks. Although 8105 will be facing long hood forward, the train crew will be allowed to proceed at track speed since Norfolk Southern ES44s are equipped with rear ditch lights. Now coupled to the cut of stack cars, Bill eases the 8105 long hood forward out of the intermodal yard. He'll clear the yard in order to grab another cut of cars on a second track. We asked Bill which section of his layout is his favorite to switch.
Well, I like actually running this side, and it's particularly fun to run the grain plant over here, Quaker Oats.
With the piggyback trailers now in tow, Bill lines the 8105 out of the intermodal yard and onto the Y so that he can line the train properly for the main line. With the train now in tow on the mainline track, we're treated to some run-bys on some of Bill's most prominent layout scenes, including this fabulous truss bridge. We decided to run 8105 around the intermodal train so that we could get some shots of the locomotive running cab forward. For added realism, Rivet Counter HO Scale GE ES44 GEVOs are available with a factory-installed ESU Loc Sound 5 DCC and sound decoder. Check out those rotating bearing caps as 8105 rounds a curve on Bill's layout. Thanks for watching the overview of our latest run of Rivet Counter HO Scale ES44 GEVO locomotives. These railroad, road number, and era-specific GEVOs are in stock now at ScaleTrains.com and select retailers. Inventory is limited, so order your favorite railroads and paint schemes today.